And we're live. Today I have the honor of interviewing Masta Ace, a legendary MC and producer. Masta Ace has been on some of the most iconic albums in hip hop history, to include tracks like the Symphony and his debut song, Me and the Biz. He just released a new album called Richmond Hill with super producer Marco Polo. We're going to bring him in and talk to him about this new album, what he's got going on, and his storied career. Let's bring him in. Peace, peace.
What's going on, man? Sorry about that.
Oh man, what an honor to have you on, Ace, and what an amazing album Richmond Hill is.
Thank
I
you.
mean, it's like you ever watch like a game and it's an amazing game and then they go into overtime and the overtime is crazy and then they go into double overtime, and I'm following your career since I was a kid, right? We're talking about the Symphony and we're talking about your first album, Me and the Biz. I mean, these were the cassette singles I listened to. Then you come back with Disposable Arts and A Long Hot Summer, and for me personally, reinvent what a concept album could be. And now you're in the Marco Polo era, where you and Marco are just, crushing it. The new album, Richmond Hill. Talk to us about the album, about how that came together conceptually, and what you guys got coming forth, in regards to touring for that album.
Well, this album was the follow-up to our album together from 2018, a Brooklyn story.
Yeah.
That album was the story of Marco Polo moving from Toronto, Canada to Brooklyn, New York to try to pursue his dream to become a hip-hop producer.
Yeah.
And so on this album, which originally was going to come out in 2020, we were working on it around 2020, but the pandemic slowed everything down, so we stopped working for like 2 years. And I told Marco at the time I didn't want to write the album during that time period, because I felt like all of the songs would have been
pandemic.
reflecting
There'd
on
have been COVID songs.
Right. And so I just waited until the world got a little bit more calm.
Yeah.
And then I could write about the stuff that I wanted to write about. So that's what we did. So this new album, Richmond Hill, it's the backstory to Marco from his childhood. From the day he was born, the album starts, and then it goes through kind of his childhood and what he went through as a teenager, dealing with substance abuse and things like that. But it's just more of his story. That's what we did on that album. Album.
Yeah. The album is beautifully produced. Your lyrics are, as they always are, I would say, uncommon, different. You come at things from a different angle. You put rhyme patterns together, and you're a very courageous writer and human, I would say, because you talk about things that aren't necessarily trending. Often they become trending later.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You're speaking from the heart about life, real life, as an MC should, and you do that on this album. You've got 2 videos that I've seen, PPE and Jordan Theory. Can you talk to us about PPE and what that means, and then we'll jump into Jordan Theory?
Well, PPE, it stands for Poor People Everywhere. The song is really just talking about the ills of a lot of communities where, a lot of times people try to make it about race, but at the end of the day, there's poor people everywhere. Middle of America, people living in trailer parks, to people living in the projects and in the big cities. And a lot of times race is what separates people, but if they would realize that they actually have a lot in common, because they're living under a system that won't allow them necessarily to flourish. And so it deals with the fact that, drugs, in a lot of cases, drugs and alcohol and other vices, those are the things that poor people in a lot of cases will rely on as a way to kind of numb the reality of what they're dealing with. It's a way to escape this life of poverty and no hope and no future. So they partake in different drugs and different vices. And so that's really what the song is talking about. I'm taking you and kind of want to walk through a neighborhood, maybe where I'm from or where I am at the time. And I'm rapping from the perspective of me being one of the poor people that are out in these streets trying to figure it out.
PPE, Poor People Everywhere. The video is out. You can find it on YouTube and on streaming channels. Dope video, very introspective, mature rhyming from one of the best to ever do it. And Marco Polo, you know, his production is always on point. You've had a chance, you know, you grew up in Brooklyn, you grew up in I believe Brownsville,
Correct.
and you had that backdrop. You had the backdrop that makes, you know, for hip hop and hip hop culture to flourish, but it also is a, you know, the backdrop to the crack epidemic of the 80s and 90s and alcohol abuse. You see it whenever you're in a inner city, but you've had a chance through your music in your career to travel to Europe, to travel across the United States. And whenever you go into certain places, whether it's middle America where people are mostly white, maybe, right? You see what you're talking about in this song, or when you go to Europe where people are white, right? And you see it in the hood in Europe. Um, does that kind of work its way into your writing a little bit? Do you've been in different locations and there's poor people everywhere?
Like literally everywhere. Sao Paulo, Brazil, we were there. And we went to the favelas, which a lot of
Yeah.
people were saying like, yo, be careful out there.
Don't
Don't
go
go out there.
there, right?
Man, listen, that was like, we took the train out there. It was like the full experience, the full boots on the ground experience. We took the subway. We were on a crowded ass train with a whole bunch of people coming home for rush hour. And we got out there. And as soon as we got off the train, we're walking through the neighborhood. You know, it honestly reminded me of the neighborhood that I was from. It felt like, because what I saw was working class people coming home, women carrying grocery bags, kids getting off, you know, the school bus or whatever, walking home as groups. And it felt just like a regular hood. And I imagine that if somebody from Brazil were to travel to Brooklyn and say, oh, I'm going to go visit Brownsville, people would probably tell them the same thing. Don't
go to Brownsville,
don't go
right?
there. So, you know, we were fortunate. We had some tour guides that are from the neighborhood. One of the guys owns a barbershop there. So we were held down, but at no point did I ever feel unsafe or that we were at risk. Like it was nothing but love. And we shot a video out there. I was out there with emcee, my man Strickland and my man Wordsworth and my man Power Malu. And, you know, we went out there and just absorbed that environment. But it really got me to see what real poverty looks like. Like sometimes in the States, we think we know what real poverty is.
Yeah.
Trust me when I tell you, there's places around the world where it's way more poverty than what we see.
Yeah. No, that's thank you for sharing that insight that, you know, a ghetto in the United States is different from a ghetto in other places where they don't have the same infrastructure and the economies have gone through worse things. You see what's happening in Haiti right now. Trust me, a ghetto in Haiti is different from a ghetto in LA, right? So it's
absolutely
it's definitely different. You've got another video out for Jordan Theory. I love that. I was talking with my wife about that track, right? Because I could relate to it so much. I was the kid. I was that kid, the kid that you're referring to, a kid that, you know, single mom struggling to make ends meet, doing a great job raising her son, but you can't have everything. You can't have most things, right? And that's what I love so much about your music is the concepts that you talk about are things that often people don't talk about, but many people have experienced those things because you're pulling probably from real life situations. Can you talk to us about the song Jordan Theory that's on the new album Richmond Hill?
Right. Well, you know, one of the things that stood out to me when was recently when Andre 3000 said that like there's nothing left to rap about. And I was like, what? There's plenty of stuff to rap about. Like there's plenty of perspectives. And this was just kind of like one of those examples. You know, the song it deals with like you said, being young and not necessarily being able to have everything that you want. But then when you become older and you're an adult and now you can afford things, you may potentially go a bit overboard with your purchases to the point to where it's to your detriment, where you know you don't need all those sneakers, but you couldn't get them as a kid, so
you're making up
you're making up for what you couldn't have, and you buying everything. And so that's why in the song, you know, in the chorus, I say can't build wealth now, we can't grow. because we still remember that no, when mom said no. And it's just a, you know, a way to start conversations. The topic is a conversational thing, where, you know, you have your own perspective. Everybody has a different perspective of it. For me, it was a slightly different era. It wasn't Jordans, it was Gucci sneakers. And, you know, I remember when those came out, and, you know, but I had a job, so I was able to buy them. But in a lot of cases, I remember mom being like, no, you can't have those. You got to have the Adidas, because that's affordable.
Yeah.
Shell-toe Adidas was, you know, more affordable. So that was kind of like where I was coming from with that, and just trying to get people to think about their spending and the way we move as adults and why we do certain things. And we, in a lot of cases, we probably never looked inside to see why.
Yeah.
Why do I have a huge sneaker collection? Why? Because when you were younger, you couldn't. So now that you have the means, now you're going to go overboard. But maybe you don't need to spend all that money.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's really I think fun and healthy for people to think about this through music,
right?
Which is one of the beautiful things about hip hop, that it uniquely gives itself, it lends itself to break down topics in a way that I think other, you know, a rock song doesn't necessarily lyrically give you the ability to kind of get so introspective.
Right.
You guys released this album at the beginning of this year. The album is masterfully produced. You're doing what Masta Ace is known to do, which is you know, put the work in on the pen, where the lyrics and the songs are put together magnificently. Are you planning any more videos? Can you talk to us about the rollout of the album, the tours, and what you and Marco Polo are going to be doing for the album?
Yeah, well, we got a visual coming soon for a song on the album called Connections, where I try to just do something a little bit unique and different from a rap style perspective. I started writing the song, and I realized that the first couple of lines, like the last word in the first bar, I could make that last word be the first word in the next bar. So once I did it a couple of times, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Let me see how far I can go with it. And I just started writing. So I got, as you see, as the song goes on, I get more and more detail with every single either phrase or word in the last line is the same phrase or word that begins the next line. It's a little tough for some people to follow. And I understand that. It's not for everybody. You know, it's just more for cats that are into the lyrics like that and into the style. And stuff like that. So it was just a fun exercise for me as a writer to see if I could pull it off. And, you know, I know there's writers out there that could take that same technique and go even crazier with it.
Yeah.
So we're going to be releasing a Connections challenge very soon.
Oh, that's dope.
For other artists to rap over the same instrumental and do their own version of what I did. I'm curious to see, you know, some of these. I'm sure it's gonna be some incredible ones.
Oh yeah.
There. So if there's any MCs on this live right now, like the Connections challenge is coming, and so you'll get that instrumental, and you know, it's just really like who can come with some bars that do the same thing that I was doing.
That's really dope.
And make it your own. So that's coming soon.
So for the Connections challenge, are you gonna time that with the visual for the track?
The visual, yeah. Well, the visual, we're holding off on the challenge because the visual is being edited. So once we have that edit, Cool Kim said he's down for the challenge. I know
there it is.
But once we have that visual and we're ready to drop that, then we'll release the video saying, okay, guys, here's the instrumental, here's the Connections challenge, have at it. You know, I don't know how many bars we'll give them. Maybe we give them 24, 36 bars. You know, they can go 16 if they want. It's up to the individual. But I think I'll probably make the beat at least 16, and then at least 36, and then we'll see. If some people might not want to do the whole thing, and that's cool.
Yeah, you know? Yeah. I think that the challenge really lends itself to what we're on right now, right? Social media and new technologies. You have a marketing degree, right? You went to school. You have a marketing degree. Your career to me is fascinating, separate from loving your music and thinking that you're a dope MC. As you know, we follow your career, right? You are on, you know, the Symphony, and you got the whole classic era, Juice Crew, and then, you know, you've got the Jeep Ass and Sitting on Chrome era, right, which is such a dope era. And then you kind of have like that first indie era where you come out with Disposable. I mean, so, like you were doing the indie thing. Now, so many of the artists that I interview are indie, right? They're releasing their vinyl, limited run cassettes and CDs. And then, they do some swag, some T-shirts, and then they tour off of that, right? They get a little European tour. But you were doing this before this current era.
20 plus years.
20 plus years doing this. So you've got the major label era, Juice. I mean, come on. Think about the hip hop history. Then you've got, your own Slaughterhouse, which is an amazing album that I loved as a kid, the Yellow Tape. And then you've got the indie era where, for me, like that's one of the best. I mean, literally, if I could only take two albums, those may be the two albums, right? Disposable Arts and A Long Hot Summer, because they go so well together. The concept is so beautiful. And then now you're in this era now where everybody's doing a version of this indie grind within the independent hip hop, the people who really rhyme, that are doing that boom bap hip hop, that aren't asking for permission. I want to know, we're talking about the Connections Challenge. How much of that marketing degree, that formal schooling has worked its way into you managing your career and coming up with some of these ideas that have been cutting edge when you were doing them, but now this is what artists do in hip hop, let's say?
My marketing degree definitely played a role throughout the 30 plus years of my career. I feel like I used it more earlier in my career when I was signed to Delicious Vinyl, and I was allowed to be in those marketing meetings, which in those days most artists weren't allowed in the marketing meetings. There was a room full of people, that didn't rap, that were making decisions on the visuals, what the backdrops was going to be, what the flats were going to be, what the posters were going to look like, what the logo was going to be. But I was very hands-on in those days, and the label respected me enough to allow me to be in those meetings and to put my 2 cents in. Then I could hear those bad ideas before they ever made it to being a reality. I'd hear somebody say something, I'd be like, "Oh, that's whack. We're not doing that. Let's do this instead." So I'm sure it's still playing a role, but it's just it's become so second nature that I don't even consciously say, okay, I'm putting on the marketing hat now. It's really second nature. It just naturally comes. And my guy Marco, who I always tease him and tell him that he has some of the worst ideas, but he actually has a lot of good ideas as well. So he definitely puts his 2 cents in on a lot of these marketing ideas that we're using going forward. And shout out to my man Eclipse from Fat Beats as well. We're kind of a three-headed monster coming up with ideas and ways to push the project.
That's really, really dope. How did you and Marco Polo meet? Like you have the new album Richmond Hill available everywhere now, but it's a follow-up album on A Brooklyn Story, right, which came out a few years ago. You guys are 2 albums in. You have incredible chemistry. You're dope. He's dope. People want to hear more. Y'all are going to go on tour together, right? So there's such a special relationship that you have. You've been in the game long enough to know that doesn't happen every day. And when it does happen, you got something special and you need to run with it, which you guys are doing. How did you guys meet?
We met in 2004 when I was working on my album, A Long Hot Summer. There's a song on that album called Oh My God featuring the Beat Nuts. So I was meeting Psycho Les at the Cutting Room studio so he could lay his verse down. And on my way out, Marco Polo, or I'm gonna say he wasn't Marco Polo, he was just some young skinny white kid, came up to me and was like, "Yo man, I do beats. Here's my CD." He gave me the CD, had an email on it or a phone number or something. And I took the CD and I left. And I ended up listening to it on the way home, and I was like, "Yo, this kid." Because
he's got the ear.
He got the drum. With me, it's about the drums. Do you have that feel for the drums? Because I hear a lot of really talented producers, and they got really dope loops. Like the music is dope, but then the drums come in, and you like, I don't like them drums. So the drums is everything for me.
You
but I
hear
can
a
tell
dope sample, and you're waiting for it to go somewhere, but it never goes.
The drums don't match. So I definitely heard talent there. I was like, this kid got something different. So, I hit him up. I asked him for some more beats. He ended up producing a song on that album, A Long Hot Summer, which was the song featuring rapper Noid, called Do It Man. And so he did that beat for me for that album. And then he's like, okay, so in return, can you do a song for my album? I'm working on a compilation. So I did a song for his album called Nostalgia. They ended up shooting a video for it. That song ended up being his biggest song of his producer career to this day. The video is like 11 million, 12 million views or something like that for an indie project, which is not,
right.
That's nothing to shake a stick at. That's good numbers for a project like that.
Crazy numbers.
Right. So because of that one song, Nostalgia, which was huge in Europe, like it's to the point where I have to perform that song.
Right.
People will be upset with me. So that's how it all kind of built. The fans, they love that song so much. They were like, "You guys should do more music. You guys should do more music." But at the time, there was a lot happening. I had another EMC album, and I did an album with NOG. There was like a lot of things that I was doing, like collaboration projects. There just was no time. So then finally, around 2016, 17, my schedule was freeing up. I wasn't touring. Marco was free because he was doing stuff too, dropping albums with Torre and Rusty Jukes and Hannibal Stacks. He was busy as well. So finally, around 2017, we both were free at the same time. I was like, all right. And I was already holding a bunch of beats of his. I was like, yo, I'm gonna start writing to some of these. Let's see how it goes. And that's really how it came to be.
Wow. And then the pandemic in between, and then now you got the second album.
Right.
That's really dope, man. What a cool story. So it's a relationship that's actually 20 years in.
04, 20 years. Yep.
Wow. You guys have the album that dropped at the beginning of this year. I see things on the gram of dates coming, tour dates coming. Can you talk to us about upcoming shows related to, the rollout of the album and what you guys are planning to do in regards to Europe, the United States? You're big in Europe. You tour Europe often. Talk to us about, what this summer is going to look like.
We get on a plane on May 26th. We're flying to Berlin, Germany for the beginning of what's going to be about a 30-city tour.
Wow.
Throughout Europe. We'll be out there the entire month of June doing shows to promote this album. I'm looking forward to going back to the Jazz Cafe. Shout out to my folks in London to see if a bunch of them are on here. I'll be at the Jazz Cafe. I think it's June 10th. Don't quote me, but you can go on the website and see it. But Jazz Cafe has brought us back so many times. And we've sold out like the last 4 shows. So I'm looking forward to selling it out for the 5th time in a row in London. But there's a bunch of shows. Skaters Palace in Munster, Germany. We're gonna be in Berlin. I don't know all the dates right, like off the top of my head, but we'll be in Germany. We'll be in Switzerland. We'll be in Sweden. We'll be in the Netherlands. We'll be in France. We're gonna be. We touch base in a lot of places, man, in Europe. And Europe has been a huge supporter of me over the last 20 plus years. And it's really has been the lifeblood of an independent artist like myself, being able to go over there consistently, tour, sell merch, and be brought back. Some of these cities I've been to 7, 8, 9, 10 times in 20 years. Some more. I think I've been to Munster, Germany like 15 times.
Wow.
So
it's
a blessing.
You know your way around now. You know where to go. You know the spot you want to go eat at. You know the place to go dig for records.
Yeah.
You've been
Marco does all that. I don't dig for records anymore, and I don't dig for sneakers anymore. I'm not a sneakerhead no more. But Marco definitely goes digging over there. Sometimes I'll go with him just to hang out. But yeah, I'm always looking for that cool little cafe or restaurant that has food that I eat. Because I'm on a plant-based diet. Occasionally I eat fish, but I'm pretty much plant-based. And so I'm always looking for new restaurants that fit, my profile of what I eat. So I'm always on the hunt for those great spots in these new cities.
Yeah, that's one of the questions that I have for you. And it touches on the topic of, you talk about things that are not frequently trending topics in hip hop, right? And
Right.
you have a track called Plant Based on the new album. You're very health conscious. Anybody who follows you and you know, likes Masta Ace sees that, you know, you're health conscious. You live a clean lifestyle. You eat clean. Can you talk to us about your journey on you know, how you got to where you're at now on your current diet, what that means to you, and you know, so much so that it's in your music, right?
Yeah, it's been about a 20+ year journey. Um, Most people know it by this point. Back in 2000, I was diagnosed with MS, and so from that diagnosis, after doing research, I realized that one of the things I needed to do was start making some dietary changes, and it wasn't immediate, it wasn't overnight, but it was gradual. And I just gradually started cutting out certain foods from my diet, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I was on my way to a more of a plant-based lifestyle. But I just did it little by little, and my mindset was, well, I'm gonna stop drinking soda and eating all of this white sugar, because what I
Yeah,
don't want is to have MS and diabetes.
yeah,
So, and then I stopped eating, meat, because I didn't want to have hypertension to go along with it. Like,
right.
these are all diseases that are prevalent in my
Yeah,
community and among black
yeah.
people, and so I'm like, listen, MS is enough. I don't need no other ones. So let me make changes
What
that
can
are
I
gonna keep me
control?
exactly.
Mhm.
So that was the first thing, sort of like gradually making dietary changes. But then at the same time, I started exercising
Yeah,
more. And shout to my guy, Coach V and Marianne. They're out in Winnipeg, Canada. I met them on one of my tours in Canada, and he's basically a trainer, and his wife is she's a nutritionist. So they kind of gave me a little program to kind of follow with exercises
yeah,
and stuff like that. So I started following their program and doing mostly body weight. It wasn't even like weights or nothing. It was just body weight stuff.
yeah,
And once I got on that kick, I was like, oh, this is cool. I like this. And I had a little timer, and I could knock out a full workout, in like 25, 30 minutes.
yeah.
So I started doing those workouts on tour at the
Mhm.
hotel gym, or in my hotel room. I would just do these really simple workouts, and it got me on the path to thinking that way and wanting to be active, because I love to run around on stage, and I'm super active on stage. If you've
You
ever
are,
seen me
dude. You're
perform,
like electric.
I move a lot. So I said, well, if I'm going to be moving like this, then I need to make sure that I'm in shape. So I'm going to do these workouts where they're so tough that the stage stuff is light work.
Yeah,
So that's so yeah. I try to get my heart rate up every workout, and build some strength too. I want to build my strength as well.
yeah.
But that's been the journey, and now I'm for all intents. I was vegan for like 3 years during the pandemic, a little before.
Yeah.
Um, and I
Vegan's
still,
tough.
it's tough.
Vegan's tough.
It wasn't even that it wasn't even that it was tough. What it was I found myself gaining weight because I was eating way too much pasta
Yeah, yeah.
and rice.
Bread and rice and
Right,
stuff
right,
like
right,
that.
right. So that I could feel full. So I decided to introduce fish back into my diet, and so and I don't eat a lot of fish. I eat, maybe 3 times a month, 4 times a month, maybe.
Yeah,
Um, and that's so when I'm having fish in those meals, I'll have fish, a salad, and maybe another cooked vegetable. But it'll be double vegetables, and then the fish,
got it.
and then water, and so that's kept my weight down.
Yeah,
I'm damn near what I weighed in high school, damn near.
that's amazing. That's awesome. And the palate adjusts, right? So like
It
you
does.
don't miss the sugar and the fast food, the stuff they put in fast food
Right.
to make your body kind of crave it. It's like a drug, right?
One of the things that helped me with the palate was I did the. Are you familiar with the Master Cleanse?
N- I mean rudimentary, where it's kind of like you flush your system with juices, right?
No, no, no. The Master Cleanse. It was created by this guy named Stanley Burrow. It's a pamphlet. You can actually buy it on on Amazon. Basically, for 10 days, all you all you put in your body is this lemonade. It's made of fresh lemons. It's grade B or lower maple syrup, and cayenne pepper.
Yeah, I've heard of this. Yeah, the cayenne pepper reminds me what. Yeah, I've heard of this.
So you make these drinks and you put them in bottles and you carry it around with you. You can drink as much of it you want all day, but that's literally the only thing that you're having for 10 days straight. In the mornings, you drink a herbal tea at night before bed, and in the morning you drink a salt water flush. So it's like I think I want to say it's a liter of sea salt water, and that's your flush in the morning. And once you're done with your bathroom duties, you're good for the rest of the day. And you just drink that lemonade. So I did that. I've done that 3 times. And in the process of doing that, your palate completely resets.
Wow.
So when you get off of that after not eating food for all those days, the first salty thing you eat tastes mad salty.
Yeah. It's like
the first sweet thing is super sweet. So that's how I was able to adjust my palate. Also, how I was able to train my thinking, because when you're in your regular eating mode, you believe that you're starving. You're like, I'm starving.
Yeah.
No, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not.
Yeah.
Your brain is telling you that, but
your brain wants the pleasure centers want.
That's what. Yes, but once you've gone 10 days without eating solid food, you realize you're not that hungry in 6 hours that you think you are, and you can go, and you're gonna be all right.
Yeah, that's really dope. Yeah, and you look great. You know what I'm saying? And I'll say this. You look great for your age. You add that on there, right? And
I got some whites.
Yeah,
some whites.
Yeah, and I think that it's really dope for somebody who's a creative, who's so well established and admired by so many people, to talk about his health, to talk about diet and these types of things, so that the plant-based person has a song to listen to, right? For the person who's thinking about it. I remember the impact that the song Beef by KRS-One had on me when I was younger, right? He was talking about ideas like this. I thought it was dope. I've had periods of time in my life where I've been vegetarian for long periods of time. I think the longest I ever went was 3 years. I've been vegan for windows of time. That's why I know that one's tougher, right? Significantly tougher if you really want to do it. But you look great, and your health journey is inspiring.
Thank you.
To wrap up the health topic, how does alcohol and cannabis that's kind of worked its way into our society? I'm out in LA. I'm from DC originally, so it's wild to see cannabis culture out here. How does that work its way into your health philosophy?
It doesn't. I've never smoked. I tried. I took a puff of a joint when I was like 14 years old with a bunch of friends, on some peer pressure stuff. But the weed. I think I've always been a germaphobe as a kid. So when they passed me the joint and I see I got all this spit on it.
It's wet, right?
It's disgusting. I'm like, ew. Like I took a couple of puffs. I'm like, this is nasty. I'm not doing this. And I just never went back to it. I never tried it again, even as an adult. Like I never tried it. As far as alcohol, I had a period of time around those years in the mid 90s when Sitting on Chrome, Born to Roll were out, where I was drinking a little bit more than I should have been. Not like stumbling or nothing like that, but just I didn't need to. I was drinking for the atmosphere more than anything else. It's a party, it's girls, give me some drinks.
It's nightlife.
Right. But I came to realize that I really didn't need it, and I had an incident in Texas where I drank before the show and got to the point where I forgot to get my bread, and I went on stage and did the show and got back off stage and couldn't find the promoter. He skipped out on my money, and so that was a lesson. That was a valuable lesson, and I was like, you know what? I'm never drinking before a show again, and it's way. I really, I might have a glass of wine with my wife at the crib,
Yeah.
but that's as far as it goes. We don't drink like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it's interesting when you go on like a health journey, how you start connecting habits that strengthen other habits and habits that take away from those habits. You know what I mean?
That's a fact.
Alcohol abuse is definitely one of those things. Getting back to the music, I mentioned earlier, you've got like these eras for me, right? You got the Slaughterhouse era. I was young and wilding myself, and those albums were so impactful. Um, Born to Roll, that sound to me on the East Coast, I was living in DC at the time. That's where I grew up. Was so different from what was happening on the East Coast.
Right.
Can you talk to us about the inspiration for car music, your journey and love for cars, especially in that era, and then sonically how that was so different to the landscape of what was happening in at least East Coast hip hop at that time, and the impact that you had as an artist? Can you talk to us about that era?
Well, Jeep Ass, which was the original, that was the original lyrics for that ended up being
Yeah,
Born to Roll. But that song was inspired by LL Cool J Booming
yeah,
System.
yeah.
Marley Marl was working on that album with LL around the same time he was working on my album, my first album. I mean, my first album. So when I transitioned from Marley into doing my own music, I knew I wanted to make a record that had that knock on it, that boom on it, because I had just bought a Jeep.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I had a Chevy Blazer. I had two 15s and two 12s in there, all the
Wow.
bass. So I wanted music that was going to knock in there. So I decided to make that song Jeep Ass, and we did the song, but then the song did okay. People was messing with it on the East Coast. It had that jazzy kind of feel to it. But then I was on a promo tour in the Carolinas, and I was at a 99-cent store in the record bin. We were on an in store, and I found this record acknowledged me. It was a Def Jam label. So when I saw the Def Jam, that's what made me pick it up.
Yeah.
And it's acknowledged me by Original Concept. I was like, oh, I remember this record. I was like, I used to like this beat, but they didn't rap on it. I wonder why they didn't rap on it. And I was like, I'm gonna buy this, and I bought it 99 cents, took it home, and I was like, yo, I think I'm gonna take the lyrics from Jeep Ass and put them over this beat, and add some bass and some heavier,
right,
808s on it, yeah, and just do it as a remix, right? And I presented it to my label, Delicious Vinyl, as a Jeep Ass remix, but I renamed it Born to Roll, and they were kind of against the idea at first. They were like, "What? We're off that single. Like, we're moving on. We're not doing nothing with Jeep Ass." So I had to actually fight in one of those marketing meetings. I had to fight for that record to even be put on the B side of my single Slaughterhouse.
Wow.
So they reluctantly put it on the B side of Slaughterhouse, the last cut. And I didn't get it wasn't no instrumental, no nothing, just last cut on the B side. They serviced Slaughterhouse to all the radio stations. KMEL in San Francisco was the first station. They got the record, they turned it over, they put that needle down, and they were like, "What's this?"
Mm-hmm.
Slaughterhouse is cool, but what's
this?
We're playing this. So of course, the label was like, "No, don't play that. Play the A side." They're like, "Nah, we playing this," and it spread like wildfire. It went from San Fran, then it went to LA, then it went to San Diego, then it went to Houston, then it went to Dallas.
And they got the car culture out here that's already crazy.
Exactly. And before you knew it, the label's like, "Ace, we got to shoot a video to this." I'm like, okay, now y'all want to shoot a video. First of all, y'all ain't even wanted on the single. Right. Fight for it, and now you want to do a video. So we shot a video.
Now it's their idea. Now it's their idea.
Right. So we ended up shooting a video for it, and it blew up like crazy. Like it just turned into it was my first radio hit. I never had a radio hit before. And so I finally got to see what that was like. It was weird for me to, turn on a regular radio in the middle of the day and hear my record, my voice on the radio. That was a completely new experience.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Me and the Biz and so many songs that you did were like, but I'm a hip hop head, you know what I mean? So that's all I look for. So for me, I was already, before the algorithm, I had my own algorithm. So I feel that you always had these hits, but I guess I guess that was kind of like that first radio, mainstream radio. What was that like for you? You know, because you basically like had the song, had the album, then you know, are creative, found something, put something together, pushed for it,
right?
And then this takes off, and you probably didn't expect it to come off like that. You
Not
just
like
thought
that,
it was dope.
right?
You're like, look, this is dope. I'm feeling this. I'm gonna do my art. How did that feel?
I felt like the beat though. When I heard that beat, when I remember the Knowledge Me beat, where they used the 808s and 909s, that sound. I was like, these are the sounds that they're using in other markets
Yeah,
now. West Coast is using these sounds.
yeah.
Down south, they're using these
Right,
sounds.
Miami
So I'm a rap.
bass, Two
Yeah,
Live Crew, that whole scene down there.
right. So I was like, I'm gonna take these lyrics and put them over this beat, and I have a feeling that they're gonna like it in other markets, but I didn't think it was gonna be what it became at all. I couldn't have
Yeah,
predicted that.
yeah. That's so wild, man. And I, you know, I get these visuals of like Nino Brown in the Jeep. You know what I'm saying? It's like that whole era.
Yeah,
And I feel that like that song and those albums encompass that era. And it's so dope that that's you, but then it's also you in Disposable Arts and A Long Hot Summer, right? And it's like two completely different eras where you know, put a stamp on hip hop. I think that the conceptual all your albums, to include the brand new album Richmond Hill, have these concepts that are well thought out, put together. It's a in some ways a signature Masta Ace approach to album making. But those two albums, Disposable Arts and A Long Hot Summer, for me really encapsulated. You do it on Slaughterhouse also, right? But
yeah.
those two, you know, the narration, the character build up, the way that the skits flow into the song, the way that the songs are organized throughout the album to take you on a journey is some of the best work ever. How did you come up with the idea? What inspired you, you know, for the Disposable Arts, and then later on, A Long Hot Summer? Did that all just come together organically? Was there, you know, a movie, a Scorsese or Brian De Palma influences? Is there, you know, what works its way into that?
Well, I have to credit De La Soul first because they were the first, to me, group or artists that had skits on an album that weren't songs, that were just interludes or things that were happening. So that opened up my mind to just the concept of having skits and putting stuff in between songs. On Slaughterhouse, like you said, you know, I was trying to tell a story, kind of, but it wasn't really that well thought out. I kind of knew what I wanted to say, but it wasn't like really a story. And then on Sitting on Chrome album, I had the story about the cousin moving from LA to New York. I mean, you know, visiting me in New York and us hanging out and trying to show a West Coast person and an East Coast person as cousins, being together, hanging out, having different ways and making it funny and entertaining. But it wasn't until Disposable that I really fully understood what I was trying to do and the story that I was trying to tell on an entire album. That's where it all came together on Disposable Arts. And then Long Hot Summer, I really, once I figured the formula out on Disposable, Long Hot Summer was much easier for me to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's wild is that now, you know, that was such an original idea when the album dropped. But now, like in New York, there is like a hip hop school. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
It's yeah, yeah, yeah. I was talking to I don't remember the name because I don't live in New York, but I had another rapper out here, Lil D, who up and coming rapper from Coney Island, and he's at you know, so one of the major it's a hip hop school basically. They teach you scratching. You got Punchline Academy. You got all these other um uh you know, where they actually take the art of rhyming
Yeah,
and
there's one that Mickey Fax has
yeah.
too.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly,
Yep.
exactly. And the names are escaping me right now, and you know, I don't want to say but it exists now. What
Yeah.
you kind of thought of, and it was so dope because, in a lot of ways, the freestyle has been, you know, the cipher has been a disposable art. The graffiti has been a disposable art. It's such a dope idea that you came up with.
Thank you.
You know, yeah, classic albums. Open up the doors as an independent artist. I want to make sure that we touch on something that I find that's really interesting about you creatively, which is, some MCs are really dope, just them, full album, and it's just them. And others sound really good when they're working as part of a crew, right? You sound dope both ways. You know what I'm saying? It could be all Masta Ace, or it could be Masta Ace with Edo G. It could be Masta Ace with Wordsworth and Punchline. And, so talk to us a little bit about how you don't always do it as a solo artist, that you at times, work with other combinations of artists and have made kind of like a parallel career, right? You've got a parallel career. You got like the EMC, right? You got Crooklyn Dodgers, right? You got the stuff you did with Edo G and MF Doom, rest in peace. And then you got just Masta Ace. Talk to us about kind of like this two parallel careers. I'm just putting it together that way. It's one career. It's you, right? But it's unique. It's highly unique that you have that quality.
Well, all those collaboration projects, the one with Edo, the EMC records, those records, I started doing those records because my plan was to do no more solo albums after Long Hot Summer. So obviously, if in my mind I'm not doing any more solo records, I'm going to put my all into these records because this is going to be my new identity. I'm going to be a member of this group or this crew. And so that's why, it sounds like I'm, trying to just, I'm going in, I'm trying to get busy because in my mind, this was what it was going to be going forward. It's going to be all EMC albums going forward. Wow. So I put my all into that. It wasn't until after a couple of albums with EMC and the Edo G album, then I did the MF Doom project. That was like the first one where it was going to be all me again. But the album had meaning. I was dedicating the album to my mother, son of Yvonne.
Yeah.
And so I knew that project couldn't be a collaboration project. It's going to have to be for me. And I was still working through the loss of my mother, so I needed that album was kind of like a form of therapy a little bit for me. So I was able to work out some things and say some things on that record that I would have never been able to say otherwise publicly. So and that MF Doom project, the Son of Yvonne project, is what opened me up to because of the response. It opened me up to the idea of maybe doing more solo records, and that's how the album with Marco started to be at least thought about in my mind.
Yeah, wow, that's beautiful, man. Mom brought it back. That's so dope. I listened to your entire discography in preparation for today, and I had not heard Son of Yvonne. Actually, it was like the only album I think I had not heard, and it's a beautiful album. I was like sitting there, it's like how did I miss this? And the track dedication brought me to tears. I called my mom yesterday. I had literally called my mom. My mom had a stroke and has really bad dementia now, and I don't talk to her as much as I should because it's like I'm talking to her like on a tape. You know what I mean? It's like,
I understand.
Yeah, she's like, "Where are you?" I'm like, "I'm in LA." She's like, "Well, how long you been in LA?" I was like, "Mom," I had that conversation like every time.
Yeah.
But it brought me to tears. And I called my mom because of that song. And again, it's an example of you as an MC touching on topics that are so people experience these things, but they're not often talked about. You know what I mean? And that album and that song's another example of that. As we start to wrap, I wanted to touch on some less common knowledge, maybe, and just maybe like fun facts. You spent a period of time. You like football. You played football, right? There was a period of time where you were
high school.
High school football coach, right? What position did you play?
I played receiver in high school, and when I got to the coaching level many years later, I coached the receivers and the defensive backs, and then I eventually was the offensive coordinator and play caller for the junior varsity at Canarsie High School in Brooklyn. I did that for 9 years in Brooklyn.
That's so dope, man. That's so dope. The direct impact you've had on their life, at the same time being like, you know, such a respected artist. Who's your favorite football team?
I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan. I've been one since 1980, the year that the Eagles made it to the Super Bowl. They lost to the Oakland Raiders, but I used to root for any team that beat Dallas.
Yeah.
So I rooted for a bunch of teams at that time, but then when the Eagles finally beat them in the NFC Championship game, when Wilbert Montgomery broke that 50-something yard run for the game winner, I was like, yo, I'm sticking with this team. Like that was my first decision. I was like, okay, because at that point I was rooting for the Rams, the Vikings, a bunch of teams.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what, I'm sticking with the Eagles, and I just stuck with them from there.
Yeah. No, I'm from DC, so you know I grew up a Redskins fan. So yeah, I got DJ E Boogie right there. He's an Eagles fan. He was my DJ when we performed together, and he's from Philly, so he's a diehard Eagles fan. But yeah, anybody but the Cowboys. I'm out in LA now, so I'm trying to figure it out. In the skins of the Commanders have been so garbage for so long. I'm trying to, you know, I love football, but I'm trying to figure out a team too. You know, there's the home team, but if they ain't winning for like 2 decades, it's like, what are we doing here? You know?
Listen, I rooted for they were the Redskins at the time, when they made it to those Super Bowls with Joe Theismann and all that. I rooted for the Redskins. Brian Rippon, Mark Rippon?
Yeah, Mark Rippon.
In those Super Bowls, I was against Denver. I was rooting for the Redskins in those games.
Yeah. That's back in our glory days, man. That's when they were good. They haven't really been good since then. You know.
You'll get it back.
Yeah, that's where everything comes full circle. I think that knowledge of football and the fact that you were a coach and have that passion kind of works its way into what we talked about a little bit with your workout and health journey. Are there any other takeaways from sports, football, your knowledge of how to motivate that's worked its way into your music career? Can you share any of that with us?
I mean, I think one of the big things being a mentor to other artists, the same way I was a mentor to these young student athletes. There are a lot of young artists that are around me at certain times backstage and things like that, and they'll ask me questions, and I give them real answers. Like I don't, you know, I don't sugarcoat it. I tell them what it is, and in those moments that I'm talking to these artists, it's just me talking, just being real. And then 6 years later or something, they'll walk up to me and be like, yo man, you remember me? I'm like, nah. Yo man, we were backstage back in 2004 and you said this and this, and it really had an impact on me. I'm like, wow, well, I'm glad that something I said had an impact. It sounds like something I would say. So, you know, so that's where I think it shows up. When I'm floating around in these different venues and I'm meeting these artists that are still trying to get their foothold in the game and figure their path out. If they ask me something, I'm gonna tell them straight up what it is.
Yeah. I think that's a beautiful segue and perhaps a good way to close out. You know, right now we're in an era of where you can have independent distribution. You can press up your vinyl, you can press up your CDs, your merch. You can create a buzz on social media and maybe get a couple of dates in Europe, and a lot of artists are doing that. As a person that is literally, we're sitting here talking with an MC that has been around all the greats, is one of the greats, is part of the fabric of hip hop, and still grinding and dropping dope music like the new album Richmond Hill, which dropped January 26th with Marco Polo, available everywhere, with a 30-day tour that's about to start in Europe in May. You know, what advice would you give to the artist that's out there that has, you know, 1,000, 2,000 followers, but he's got hunger, he's got bars, he's got work ethic, but is trying to figure out, you know, what's the right thing for them to do? It's a complicated question. I don't want to oversimplify it, but if you could drop a jewel or two, I think that there may be somebody listening you know, now or in the future when this is recorded and put up, that they could benefit from your knowledge?
I would say figure out who your audience is and play to your audience. That's the most important thing. Too many artists are trying to play to the masses. They're trying to play to the mainstream, and the mainstream is super fickle. So they come and go. Like they might mess with you here, and then they might not next year. So figure out who your core fans are, and that's who you should be serving. And that's what has allowed me to go back to Europe for 24 years now.
Wow.
Is I figured out who my fans were, and those are the same people that come to my shows.
That's so dope. Masta Ace, it's been an honor. I truly listened to you growing up. I'm listening to the new Richmond Hill.
Nice.
I can't wait to see what you have in store in the future. You're making incredible music. You are at the vanguard of what hip hop is, because hip hop is such a young music genre that we're looking at OGs like you to continue defining where it goes. So salute to you. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for a dope album. Richmond Hill, Masta Ace, and Marco Polo, available everywhere.
Look out for my musical, The Falling Season, coming soon to a theater near you.
Dope. I hope to do this again sometime in the future. Salute.
Brother.
Thank you.
Peace.